my loves, and welcome back to a slightly preemptive episode of the Ages of Chaos. Now, one of the most exciting things that's happening in Warhammer 40,000 at the moment is, of course, the advent of 10th edition. 10th edition is fast approaching, and it's really fascinating. This is clearly a really big sea change. The formatting of the game has changed dramatically, in the same way that it did from 2nd ed to 3rd ed and from 7th ed to 8th ed. In between those additions and those changes, then they were using basically the same rule set. Like from 3rd ed right up until the end of 7th ed, it's the same game system with minor tweaks and variations. 2nd ed is kind of an adaptation of the original game, which is Rogue Trader. It's refined down, so it's a bit more of a skirmish game. Still massively complicated, with lots of RPG elements. Then 8th ed changed the system completely, and 9th ed is kind of like an adaptation of 8th ed. 10th edition is its own thing. It is entirely rewritten, and from what we've seen, from what they've given us, it looks like what they've done is tried to bring it into line with Age of Sigmar 3rd edition. The stats are very similar. The way the data sheets work is very similar. The command system and the turn phases are very similar. Even given that, there are variations and differences, like, for example, the eradication of the psychic phase, which, okay, when it came back for... When did the psychic phase come back? Was it in... Oh, I can't remember when they brought... I think it was for 8th ed, wasn't it? They brought back the psychic phase, or was it 7th? I can't quite remember. We were all rather pleased by that because it was a throwback to the older editions of the game when you had an entire phase for psychic shenanigans. However, in practical terms, certainly for those of us who are Eldari players or Thousand Sons players or Grey Knights players, it's a ball ache. It's a giant migraine. Basically what happens, I play Thousand Sons primarily in 9th ed, and don't get me wrong, I've really enjoyed 9th ed a lot. I think it's been a really good version of the game. What happens is the game just stops. The minute it hits the psychic phase, the game just stops, and it is a case of just cataloguing, effectively. It's bookkeeping. You've got to sit there and work out, right, so this aspiring sorcerer has this upgrade, he has these psychic powers, he can cast this many psychic powers, he provides this many cabal points, so he can also do this, and you've got to keep doing that for all the sorcerers in your army, and it takes forever. It's a complete ball ache. What they've done in 10th ed, by the look of it, is they've really listened to some of the feedback about 9th ed, and they've refined it down. So they've actually gone back to what it was like at the beginning of 3rd ed, where psychic powers were abilities and weapons, effectively. They worked like in other phases. So now your aggressive psychic powers tend to work in the shooting or assault phases, and your buffing or diminishing psychic powers, they work in the command phase or in other phases, and that's really good. Also, they're all available on the damn datasheet, so you don't have to like get your codex out and look through, right, they have access to this lore, they've got this psychic power. No, it's on the sheet. It's on the datasheet, so you know what your psychers can do. That, for psychic heavy armies, is an absolute blessing. I can't even tell you. For Thousand Sons, that is going to be just mwah, chef's kiss. It is going to speed up the dynamism of the game just beautifully. What they've also done, from what we've seen, and bear in mind we've only really had drip feeds thus far, is they've changed the dynamic of psychers entirely in the game, and also of characters in general. So characters are really interesting now. Another throwback to 3rd edition is that characters can now join units, and the units they join get benefits depending upon what synergies they have, and that is brilliant. That unlocks so many potentials for army building. I imagine you're going to get things like in the Thousand Sons. I imagine if you take a Terminator armored Thousand Sons sorcerer, make them join a Scarab Occult Terminator unit, they get certain benefits, right? It's really cool. I imagine the same is true, like, for example, in Death Guard. If, say, a Lord of Contagion or a Biologist Putrefier joins a unit, they get certain benefits. That would be my guess. It's really bloody cool. I really like that because it opens up this entire vista for army design. Another thing they've done, which I really, really like, is that of all the additions that have gone thus far, this looks like it's going to be the most complete at launch. It looks like they've sat down and really thought about, okay, where do the armies sit? What do they look like? What is their essence? What are they supposed to play like? So you're not getting this thing where you've got the, hopefully, fingers crossed, when they start releasing the codices, you are not going to get the codex creep thing happening. You're not going to get like what you had in Ninth Ed, where the Drukhari codex hits and suddenly Drukhari are the best codex in the game. Suddenly the Votan hit and suddenly the Votan are the best codex in the game. The Tyranids hit, they're the best codex in the game. The Tau hit, they're the best codex in the game. The Astra Militaria hit, they're the best codex in the game. Hopefully we're not going to have that. If you want to look at what the format is going to be for 10th Ed codices, then I think the best example we've got is the 9th edition World Eaters Codex, which we discussed last time, I believe, because that codex is very, very different from all the others in 9th Ed. It's much more refined. It only has 2 divergent army lists instead of umpteen million. And it only has 3 relics per army list, 3 warlord traits per army list, and 1 page of stratagems. I think that's what you're going to get in your 10th edition codices, and that's going to be just wonderful. Everything that you need, everything essential, is going to be on the damn data sheets for the army list entries, and that is going to speed up the game enormously. I mean, some of the stuff we've seen for 10th Ed is gorgeous. The Space Marines, oh my god, I haven't been so excited about the Space Marines in years. They've got some beautiful new models. Those new Terminators, great. That new Terminator Librarian, oh, he's so good. You better believe I'm going to Thousand Suns him up a little bit. We've got the new Tyranids. It's been a long, as if you've been listening to the Fluffenhammer, you know it's been a long, long, long bloody time since the Tyranids have had like an entire army-wide redesign, or at least like new troop units released and whatnot, but that's what they've done, and everything we've seen thus far is mwah. They are beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. There's a new leader organism called the Neurotyrant, I believe, and it's this big floating sort of Lovecraftian squiddy thing made up entirely of brains and tentacles. It's the big psychic Tyranid, and it is absolutely stunning. I have an inclination, actually, to make a Lord of Change conversion out of it. I think if you put eyes all over it and made it a little bit more demonic, it would look really good as a Lord of Change, actually, as an alternative to the wonderful bird miniature that we have. I have an inclination to do that. That might be fun. But from what we've seen thus far, another thing they've been doing is every weekday for the last couple of weeks, we've had there's little hints and tantalizers of all the armies. All their core special rules, a couple of units for each army have been revealed, and they've all been brilliant. Every single one has been brilliant. There's been the usual sort of like, oh, the sky is falling hyperbole from some of them, most notably the Death Guard one, but they, from what I've seen, I'm really pleased. I am really, really pleased. In terms of Chaos, what we've seen thus far are the core Chaos Space Marines, so your undivided legions, if you like, and of course the Emperor's Children, until they get their new codex, which hopefully will be in 10th Ed, who knows, eh? We've seen what their army-wide special rule is, which is Dark Pacts. Effectively, every time a unit with the Dark Pact special rule fires a long-range weapon or makes an assault attack with a close combat weapon, you can make a Dark Pact, which enables you to apply either the sustained hits special rule, which means you get exploding 6s, so every time you roll a 6 to hit you get an extra hit, or the lethal hit special rule, which means that every time you roll a 6 to wound, it wounds automatically. Brilliant. It's fluffy. Also, you have to roll, I think, a leadership test for them, and if you fail, then the unit takes die 3 mortal wounds. Wonderfully fluffy. Love it. Really, really love it. I think that works so, so well. And also, it's bloody strong. It's a really, really powerful special rule, especially at range. Oh my god, if you put this onto, like, Havocs, when they're firing a load of dice from, like, autocannons or something like that. It's so bad. It's so nasty. We've seen Abaddon the Despoiler, who has been toned down a little bit from his 9th Ed incarnation, which makes a lot of sense, by the way, because Abaddon was a bit much in 9th Ed. He was the auto-take unit in the Chaos Space Marines book, you know? He was a little bit much. He could go toe-to-toe with the Lion easily, with Gilliman easily, and fight them and win very, very easily. And that's not really how it should be. I mean, as powerful as he is, he's not a Primarch, you know? So they've toned him down a little bit and made him a slightly different style of character. Unlike the Primarchs, he can join units and he buffs them in that way, as well as having lots of aura abilities to select from, which are rare in 10th Ed. You don't get what you had in 8th and 9th, where characters have aura abilities that have a certain range. It doesn't work like that anymore. Characters either have benefits for units they join, or they have an aura ability. Like Robert Gilliman, who's an absolute fucking beast, by the way, in this new edition. We've seen him as well. He's an absolute beast. Abaddon is a beast too, but in a different way. He can hide in a unit of Terminators, for example, which makes perfect sense. With a bodyguard unit of Chosen or Terminators, buff them up to the 9s. He's also lethal. I mean, his attacks with Drachnien, his Demon Sword, and the Talon of Horus are something else. He gets 14, I think, with the Talon of Horus, which is mental. We've seen the core Traitor Legionary datasheet, and it's amazing. It's absolutely brilliant. They are really adaptable. They have loads of weapon options and upgrades and whatnot. Little special rules that alter the Dark Pacts a little bit, that makes it a bit more reliable. They can basically re-roll the leadership test when you take a Dark Pact for them, which makes perfect sense. No, they're really good. Really, really good. We've also seen the World Eaters. The World Eaters had a really big one, actually. The Blood Tithe has changed quite dramatically. We don't know if the Tithe itself exists anymore, but I imagine it does. My guess is the Blood Tithe is going to be in their detachment rules. But what they get is an army-wide special rule called Blessings of Khorne. And what you do is you roll 8 dice at the beginning of every battle round. And for every double or triple, you can buy effects that are army-wide, which affect every unit in your army, and they are brilliant. They don't last the whole game this time. They only last until the end of the battle round, but it's still bloody brilliant. You can get them from the very beginning of the game without sacrificing units. It's very, very good. I'm wondering if the Blood Tithe will turn up in another way, in another form. My guess is it will, i.e. in their detachment special rule. We've seen the Khorne Berserkers, and they're bastards. You know, they are as they're supposed to be. They hit with all the upgrades you can get for them from the Blessings of Khorne. They're going to hit hard. They're going to hit like dump trucks. We've seen Angron. We've seen Angron, and he's had a massive upglow. He's much more durable now. They've toned down his ability to resurrect a little bit, which is probably a good thing, to be honest. You have to roll 3 6s on the Blood Tithe to get him now, which is on the Blessings of Khorne to get him now, which is fine. He's not going to die that easily, this guy. He's toughness 11 now, and he's got, I think, 18 wounds. So he's a beast. He's an absolute beast. 2+ armor save with a 4+ invulnerable. Yeah, he's an absolute monster. And he has many high strength attacks and aura abilities as well. So yeah, he's a good one. The one that's causing everyone a little bit of like fluster is the Death Guard one, and for the love of me, I don't know why. I'll be honest, for the love of me, I don't know why. These sort of introductory articles, they only give you a microcosmic peek at these armies. You only get to see the army-wide special rules. Sometimes you get the detachment special rules, and you get a couple of units. That's it. You don't know anything else. You don't see most of the stratagems. You don't see the warlord traits. You don't see the relics. You don't see the benefits that the characters give when you introduce them into units. So there's a bit of a sky is falling thing with the Death Guard one, because they don't get insofar as we can see, there is no army-wide special rule for like feel no pain or anything like that. What they do get is they are higher toughness, as you'd expect, and they also retain their contagions ability from 9th Ed. So as the game, they have an aura. Every unit in the army has an aura that lessens the toughness of enemy units, and it expands as the game goes on. It's really, really nasty. And their detachment special rule is called Spread the Sickness, and what this is hideous. It's hideous. If this existed in 9th Ed, it would be OP as hell. Basically, when they take an objective, they claim it, and unless the enemy can reclaim it at the end of a turn, then it stays claimed, even if the Death Guard units move away from it, and it gains the contagions rule. So as they move across the battlefield, they're slow as all hell, by the way, which makes perfect sense for the Death Guard. They're supposed to be. As they spread across the battlefield corrupts, and it becomes more hazardous for the enemy to move around it. It's really clever, and it's very characterful. We've seen the Blightlord Terminators, and boy, are they insane. Toughness 6 Terminators, with the Spread the Sickness rule, with special... By the way, they have special bolters now. That's another thing. We've seen the data sheets for things like the... what's the special? The Malignant Plaguecaster, the special Psyker for the Death Guard, and it looks like every bolter or bolt-based weapon in the Death Guard has lethal hits. It's a Plague Bolter now, which is brilliant. That's amazing. That makes them much, much nastier at range. They get basically exploding hits at range. It's really good. But the Blightlord Terminators are insane. They're really powerful. Also, we saw the Malignant Plaguecaster, who looks like he's going to have a great deal of utility now in a Death Guard army. He has all of his psychic powers on his data sheet, and most of them are... Some of them are very, very aggressive, like the classic Plague Wind, which is a classic from the earliest days of Nurgle, from ROC Lost and the Damned. He also has abilities that debuff the enemy, which is very characterful for Nurgle. He has a special rule that buffs up his Plague Wind, so that if enemy units are affected by it, it also has a debuffing effect. It's really, really good. I'm very pleased with that. One of the most interesting articles we've had thus far is for Demons, Chaos Demons, who have always been really rather tricky in 40k. They've always had difficulty with them. They did very well in 9th with the Warp Storm table. In 10th, what they've got is the Shadow of the Warp. And what that does, effectively, is it allows demons to spread debuffing and morale effects across the battlefield. Now, morale is very different in 10th Ed. It has much, much more profound consequences, and this is brilliant. It actually works really, really, really well for demons, because that's what they're supposed to do, right? They're supposed to unsettle and disturb and horrify. That's what they do, and by the look of it, they're going to be very, very strong indeed. I mean, it's a brilliant army-wide special rule. For them, we saw the Keeper of Secrets, which is it's a brilliant, big, nasty unit. It's more or less unchanged from 9th. It's a really wonderful, very powerful Greater Demon. Very fast. It moves 14 inches per turn. We also saw Balakor, and Balakor is Primarch level. He's a nasty, nasty, nasty piece of work, as you'd expect from the original Demon Prince. So yeah, it's all very exciting. I think the one that's going up tomorrow as of this recording is the Chaos Knights. So it's going to be very interesting, because they didn't tend to fare very well in 9th Ed, sadly. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do with them to bring them up to speed. Thus far, what I've seen of 10th, I am really, really pleased with. There's a lot of doomsaying out there, and I find that baffling, because as I've said, we're only seeing microcosms of these armies. We're not seeing the big picture here. We're only seeing hints and suggestions of what they're going to be. You need to look at them holistically when their rule sets are released. And, by the way, we have complete rule sets at the outset of 10th that are fully functional. The codices are going to come in later and just introduce variety, you know? So, yeah, the sky is falling hyperbole that's going on at the moment is eye-rolling for me, I've got to say. It's a case of like, oh, just calm down a bit and wait and see. Let's see what they're going to do with it. Thus far, from what I've seen, I'm really excited. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with the Thousand Sons. There will be basically a follow-up to this video when the Thousand Sons and the Chaos Knights are out there. And are there any other Chaos armies that I need to take into consideration? Probably will be at some point. Yeah, the Dark Angels, of course. Silly me. But until next time, my loves, bye-bye.